Welcome to Simple French with Thomas. Today let's discover one of the most important past tense in French, le passé composé. Alright, thank you for joining this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet, and of course, don't hesitate to like the video if you liked it. Alright, so as mentioned just before, today we're gonna see one of the most important past tense in French, which means there is more than one. The past tense will be used when you're gonna talk about something that happened in the past at some point, something short that it's already done with. For example, if I say, I ate an apple. I ate an apple, it's something that happened in the past, that was a short action, and that's over, it's finished. In opposition, I could use imparfait, which is imperfect, if I was talking about something that has been lasting for a certain amount of time. Like if I say, for example, when I was a kid, I used to play soccer. When I was a kid, this is something that describes me. It talks about a long period of time. When I was a kid, I used to play soccer. And when you're going to talk about a habit, I used to do this, I used to do that. Imperfect as well. So today let's focus on passé composé, action that happened this weekend and you want to talk about, oh, this weekend I went to the beach, or anything that is a short action that is already over with. Alright, so what we need to see when we use the passé composé in French is to understand its logic. It's what we call a composed tense, passé composé, composed. Le passé composé is basically made of two verbs, and this is what you're gonna need to know before to start learning le passé composé. It's to be and to have at the present tense. Let's just have a little recap. If you wanna say to have in French, avoir. J'ai, tu as, il, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils, elles ont. To have at the present tense, this is how you say it. And normally you say whatever you want after. And now let's see to be. Être. Je suis, tu es, il, elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils, elles sont. And this is very important because every time you're going to talk about the past tense, you're going to have to use one of these forms first, and then what we call the participle form, which is basically the verb you want to use. For example, if I say I ate an apple, in French I will say j'ai mangé une pomme. Most of the time you're going to use avoir, j'ai plus the verb. Manger, you recognized it. Manger, it's to eat, but with an E accent at the end. And this is basically how you're going to have to conjugate your verb when you use passé composé. When you have a verb ending with ER, you're going to get rid of ER and you will replace it by E accent, E accent. Et, j'ai mangé. Same thing if I say, this weekend I watched TV. Ce week-end, j'ai regardé la télé. Regarder, ER, I got rid of it and I replace it with E accent. J'ai regardé. Now quickly, let me show you the IR verbs and then we're gonna see the exceptions. If I use finir and I wanna say I finished my homework, I'm gonna say j'ai fini mes devoirs. Fini comes from finir. I get rid of the R, I keep the I, and I still use j'ai in front of it. J'ai fini mes devoirs. If I want to say now, we picked the movie, I'm gonna say nous avons, nous because we, nous avons choisi le film. Choisi, I, same, as you can see. A and E, it's always a termination. With to have, it will always be the same. Now, you've been noticed that all the examples I gave you, you had to use avoir. J'ai mangé, j'ai regardé, j'ai fini, nous avons choisi. But in some cases, you're gonna need to use to be, and this is the cases you're gonna need it. So first of all, it exists a list of what we call movement verbs. Movement verbs, it's not a great name because not all the movement verbs as we can imagine are actually belonging to that list. Like if I say marcher, which is to walk, courir, to run, They movements, but they don't belong to that list. So we're gonna need to remember these 16 following verbs, which are devenir, revenir, monter, rester, sortir, venir, aller, naître, descendre, entrer, rentrer, tomber, retourner, arriver, mourir, partir. And if you grab the first letter of each of those verbs, you're gonna have Dr. and Mrs. Van der Tramp. And this can be a little technique for you to remember these 16 verbs. They're not many, but you will see it's quite useful to remember this Dr. and Mrs. Van der Tramp, because every time you're gonna have those verbs, you will need to use to be. If I say, for example, I stayed, I'm gonna say je suis resté. And not j'ai resté. J'ai resté, it's wrong. Je suis resté. If I wanna say tomber, to fall, I will use nous sommes tombés. Nous avons tombé. No, it doesn't work neither. Nous sommes tombés. So these 16 verbs will need to be and not to have. Now, there is a little something that you're gonna have to think when you use a verb with to be, so one of the 16 movement verbs, for example, it's that your participle verb, which is basically monter, sortir, all the verbs with E accent or I at the end. In that case, you will need to agree those verbs to the subject. So if I say je suis sorti, I am a man, I say je suis sorti I. However, if I say elle est sortie, so I'm saying she went out, elle est sortie, sortie need a I after the I, because she's a lady. Elle, it's female. So if I say ils sont partis, ils, with a S at the end, it's plural masculine. So that means I'm gonna write the plural form of partis. Ils sont partis, IS. If I say elles sont parties, plural feminine, I'm gonna write parties, IES. So that's it. Every time you're gonna have to be, your verb that comes after the participle verb will need to agree on the subject. And now let's have a look to the second exception of this passé composé. We saw that the movement verbs were using to be instead of to have, but there is another type of verbs, the reflexive verbs. If I say I washed myself this morning, in French, you will have to say je me, reflexive pronoun, suis lavé ce matin. You will need to use a reflexive pronoun just after the subject, je me in that case, and then you will have suis lavé working the same way than what you did with the movement verb. Je me suis lavé et elles se sont reposées, they rested. Elles se because elles plural in that case, sont reposées et es because L is plural and feminine. And this is it. This is what you're gonna need to remember when you use ER and IR verbs in French. You're gonna replace the ER by E accent, the IR by I. Most of the time if you use to have as the first verb, but when you're gonna use to be, so with movement verbs or reflexive verbs, you're gonna need to agree depending the subject. If you do have any question, leave a comment under this video. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet, and I see you very soon. À bientôt.